Imagine for a moment that the world around you is slowly fading. The faces of your children, the morning sunlight, the pages of your favorite book, all of it blurring into a dim, shapeless fog. This is the reality for millions of people suffering from cataracts, a condition that steals sight and with it, independence and joy. Now, imagine that the person who would change all of that, who would invent a tool to bring sight back to the blind, was a young black girl growing up in Harlem at a time when the world told her she didn't belong in medicine. Her name was Dr. Patricia Bath, and her story is one of brilliance, resilience, and an unshakable belief that sight is a basic human right. The year was 1942, and the world was at war. But in the bustling streets of Harlem, a different kind of revolution was about to begin. Patricia Bath entered the world on November 4th, born to parents who understood that the greatest gift they could give their children was not money or status, but the courage to dream. Her father, Rupert, was a man of many talents, an immigrant from Trinidad who became the first black motorman for the New York City subway system, a newspaper columnist, and a merchant seaman who traveled the globe. Her mother, Gladys, was a descendant of African slaves and Cherokee Native Americans, a woman who worked as a housekeeper and domestic worker. She scrubbed floors so that her children could have something far more valuable, an education. From her earliest days, Patricia Bath was surrounded by the kind of love that fuels greatness. Her father, Rupert, filled her imagination with stories of his travels across the oceans, teaching her about different cultures and the vast world beyond Harlem streets. He was an educated man, a writer and thinker, who inspired his daughter to see beyond the limitations that society tried to place on her. But it was her mother, Gladys, who planted the seeds of scientific curiosity in young Patricia's heart. She bought her daughter a chemistry set, a simple gift that would spark a lifelong love affair with science and discovery. Growing up in Harlem in the 1940s and 50s meant growing up in a world that was deeply segregated and unjust. But the Bath household was a sanctuary of possibility. Patricia's parents refused to let their children be defined by the color of their skin or the neighborhood they came from. They believed in education as the great equalizer, the key that could unlock any door. Patricia, with her sharp mind and insatiable curiosity, was ready to turn that key. She devoured books, asked endless questions, and dreamed of a future that seemed impossible for a girl like her. But in the Bath household, nothing was impossible. By the time she reached high school, Patricia Bath was already proving that she was destined for extraordinary things. She attended Charles Evans Hughes High School in Manhattan, a place where her brilliance could not be contained. She graduated in just 2.5 years, a testament to her fierce intelligence and determination. But even more impressive was what she accomplished at the age of 16. In 1959, Patricia received a National Science Foundation scholarship to attend the Summer Institute in Biomedical Science at Yeshiva University, a program that would change the course of her life forever. Under the mentorship of Dr. Robert Bernard, Patricia Bath embarked on research that would have impressed seasoned scientists twice her age. She developed a mathematical equation that could predict the growth of cancer cells, a groundbreaking achievement for a teenager. Her research was so remarkable that it was published and presented at a major conference. In 1960, she received the Merit Award from Mademoiselle magazine. a national honor that recognized her as one of the brightest young minds in America. At an age when most teenagers are worrying about homework and social lives, Patricia Bath was already changing the world of science. Here's what makes her story truly extraordinary. Patricia Bath never treated her achievements as hers alone. She carried with her the memory of her mother, scrubbing floors so she could study, and her father, breaking barriers so she could dream. And Patricia Bath would go on to break barriers that had never been broken before. This was just the beginning of a journey that would take her from the streets of Harlem to the pinnacle of medicine. A journey that would ultimately restore sight to millions of people around the world. In 1964, Patricia Bath packed her bags and left New York for Washington, D.C. to attend Howard University College of Medicine. She arrived at a pivotal moment in American history, as the Civil Rights Act was signed into law and the fight for equality reached a fever pitch. For Patricia, medicine was never just about treating diseases. It was about serving a community that had been denied basic dignity for centuries. She carried with her the hopes of her parents and the weight of a generation demanding change. At Howard, Patricia did something that would define her entire career. She refused to wait for permission to lead. She co-founded the Student National Medical Association, an organization created to support and advocate for Black medical students across the country. In 1965, just 1 year later, she became its first woman president. This was no small achievement. In a time when women, especially Black women, were expected to stay in the background, Patricia Bath stepped forward and took charge. Her commitment to justice did not stop at the walls of her medical school. In 1967, Patricia received a prestigious Children's Bureau National Government Fellowship to travel to Belgrade, Yugoslavia, where she studied children's health and healthcare systems abroad. What she saw there opened her eyes even wider to the inequalities that existed in her own country. She realized that access to quality eye care was a privilege reserved for the wealthy and the white, while poor communities and racial minorities were left to suffer and go blind. In 1968, Patricia Bath graduated with honors from Howard University College of Medicine. Her excellence in the field of ophthalmology was recognized with the Edwin Watson Prize for Excellence in Ophthalmology, awarded to her by her mentor, Dr. Lois A. Young. But even as she received this honor, her mind was on something far bigger than personal achievement. The world was burning with injustice, and Patricia knew she could not stand on the sidelines. She had to act. That same year, following the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Patricia Bath organized her fellow Howard medical students to provide volunteer healthcare services to the Poor People's Campaign in Resurrection City. She served as an assistant general coordinator, leading efforts to bring medical care to those fighting for economic justice. For Patricia, being a doctor meant more than just healing bodies. It meant standing with the oppressed and using her skills to build a more just world. After graduating from Howard, Patricia Bath returned to New York City to begin her internship at Harlem Hospital, the very community where she had grown up. She was no longer a little girl dreaming of becoming a doctor. She was now a physician serving the people who had raised her. Her days were long and exhausting, but Patricia thrived on the work. She saw patients who had been neglected by the healthcare system for decades, and she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. But Patricia's journey was just beginning. In 1969, she was awarded a fellowship in ophthalmology at Columbia University, one of the most prestigious medical institutions in the country. She became the first Black American to train in ophthalmology at Columbia, a distinction that came with immense pressure and scrutiny. She was stepping into a world that had never welcomed people who looked like her, and she knew she had to be twice as good just to be seen as equal. It was during this time, while working at both Harlem Hospital and Columbia University, that Patricia Bath made a discovery that would change the course of her life and the lives of millions. She noticed something deeply troubling. At Harlem Hospital's eye clinic, nearly half of her patients were blind or severely visually impaired. But at Columbia, which served a predominantly white and wealthy population, blindness was rare. The difference was staggering, and Patricia could not ignore it. She decided to investigate. Patricia conducted a retrospective epidemiological study, reviewing state blindness registries painstakingly by hand because computers were not yet available for such work. Her findings confirmed what she had suspected. Blindness among Black Americans was double that of white Americans. Even more shocking, blindness due to glaucoma was 8 times higher among Black Americans. This was not a matter of biology or genetics. This was a matter of access, of poverty, of systemic racism in healthcare. Patricia Bath had uncovered a truth that the medical establishment did not want to acknowledge. She saw that blindness was not just a medical condition, it was a social injustice. And she knew that she could not simply treat patients one by one. She had to change the system itself. This realization would lead her to create a new field of medicine, one that would bring eye care directly to the communities that needed it most. It was the beginning of her greatest work yet. Patricia Bath's residency at New York University from 1970 to 1973 was historic in every sense of the word. She became the first African-American resident in ophthalmology at NYU, a milestone that should have been celebrated but instead brought relentless scrutiny. Every step she took was watched, every decision questioned, every achievement dismissed by those who could not see past her race and gender. But Patricia had spent her entire life preparing for moments like this. She did not ask for permission to belong. She simply belonged. The obstacles she faced were not subtle. She encountered systemic racism and sexism at every turn, from colleagues who doubted her abilities to institutions that refused to take her seriously. She was told directly and indirectly that she did not belong in the operating room, that a Black woman could not possibly match the skill of her white male peers. But Patricia Bath had a simple response to all of it. She later said, "I had a few obstacles, but I had to shake it off." She refused to let discrimination block her from doing the work she loved. During these grueling years of training, Patricia also built a family. She married and in 1972 gave birth to her only child, a daughter she named Erica. Imagine the demands of a surgical residency, the endless hours, the impossible expectations, and now add the responsibility of a newborn baby. Patricia Bath did not slow down. She somehow found the strength to be both a pioneering surgeon and a devoted mother, proving that women could excel in medicine without sacrificing their humanity or their families. Erica would later become a psychiatrist, following in her mother's footsteps and continuing the family legacy of healing. But in those early years, Patricia was navigating a world that had no roadmap for women like her. She was creating the path as she walked it, carving out space for herself and for every Black woman who would come after her. She did not just survive her residency, she thrived. graduating with the skills and determination that would soon change the face of ophthalmology forever. After completing her residency, Patricia Bath continued her relentless pursuit of excellence. She completed a corneal fellowship program at Columbia University from 1973 to 1974, focusing on corneal transplantation and keratoprosthesis surgery. This was the most delicate and complex work in ophthalmology, replacing damaged corneas with artificial ones to restore sight. She was mastering every aspect of her field, leaving no doubt about her brilliance. But she was also watching, learning, and preparing for something far bigger than personal achievement. Still a young intern at Harlem Hospital, Patricia Bath had already begun to change the system from within. She noticed that Harlem Hospital's eye clinic did not perform eye surgery at all. Her patients, many of them blind or facing blindness, had nowhere to go for the care they desperately needed. So Patricia did what she always did. She took action. She persuaded her professors at Columbia University to perform free eye surgeries on blind patients at Harlem Hospital. She volunteered as an assistant surgeon, giving her own time and skill to serve her community. Her efforts bore fruit. In November 1969, Patricia Bath was part of the Columbia team that performed the first major eye operation at Harlem Hospital. By 1970, the hospital was finally offering the surgical services its patients had been denied for so long. This was not just a medical victory. It was a moral one. Patricia Bath had proven that when you refuse to accept injustice, when you demand better for the people who have been forgotten, real change is possible. She had taken on a broken system and forced it to heal. She knew that one surgery, one hospital, one program was not enough. She had seen the epidemic rates of preventable blindness among underserved urban populations, and she understood that the problem was not isolated to Harlem. It was everywhere. So, she created a solution that would reach across the globe. In 1976, she proposed a new discipline called community ophthalmology, combining public health, community medicine, and clinical practice to bring eye care directly to the people who needed it most. Community ophthalmology was revolutionary in its simplicity and its power. Volunteers were trained as eye care workers to provide primary eye care to chronically underserved populations. They visited senior centers and daycare programs to screen for cataracts, glaucoma, and other conditions. This was medicine that did not wait for patients to come to the hospital. It went to them, meeting them where they lived, breaking down the barriers of poverty, transportation, and fear that had kept so many people from receiving care. Year 1976, Patricia Bath co-founded the American Institute for the Prevention of Blindness, a nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C. She founded it with psychiatrist Alfred Cannon and pediatrician Aaron Ifekwunigwe, two colleagues who shared her vision of a world where no one went blind from preventable causes. The Institute was built on a simple but powerful principle. No one should go blind from a cause that could have been prevented. The American Institute for the Prevention of Blindness would go on to support programs that protect, preserve, and restore sight around the world. It was the culmination of everything Patricia Bath had learned, everything she had witnessed, everything she had fought for. She had identified a devastating inequality, documented it with rigorous research, and then built not one, but two systemic solutions to address it. Community ophthalmology and the AIPB were her gifts to humanity, and they continue to save sight to this very day. In 1974, Patricia Bath packed her bags once again and headed west to Los Angeles, a city that would become the stage for her most transformative work yet. She joined the faculty of both UCLA and Charles R. Drew University as an assistant professor of surgery and ophthalmology. This was no small feat. When women, especially black women, were rarely seen in academic medicine, Bath was stepping into the world that had never welcomed anyone like her. But she had spent her entire life preparing for moments like this. The following year, in 1975, she made history once again by becoming the first woman faculty member in the Department of Ophthalmology at UCLA's prestigious Jules Stein Eye Institute. Imagine walking into a room full of male colleagues who had never worked alongside a woman, let alone a black woman, and proving through sheer brilliance that you belong there. That was Patricia Bath's daily reality. She did not ask for permission or acceptance. She simply showed up, did the work, and let her results speak for themselves. But Bath was not content to simply exist in this new world. She was determined to build something lasting. She was recruited by both UCLA and Charles R. Drew University to co-found an ophthalmology residency program at Martin Luther King Jr. Hospital, a facility serving the underserved communities of South Los Angeles. Was community ophthalmology in action, bringing world-class training and care to the very people who had been ignored by the medical establishment for far too long. In 1974, she was appointed Assistant Chief of the King Drew UCLA Ophthalmology Residency Program, and in 1983, she was named its chief, becoming the first woman in the United States to head an ophthalmology residency program. This was not just a personal achievement. It was a statement that women, particularly women of color, could lead at the highest levels of academic medicine. She was not just breaking glass ceilings, she was shattering them entirely. At UCLA, Bath continued to build systems that would outlast her. In 1978, she founded the Ophthalmic Assistant Training Program, which trained personnel to provide screening, health education, and support for blindness prevention strategies. These graduates became the backbone of community eye care, reaching patients who would otherwise never see a doctor. She also established the keratoprosthesis program, an advanced surgical treatment for blind patients that continues to restore sight to thousands of people today. Her work with keratoprosthesis was so groundbreaking that in 1983 she was chosen to lead the first national study on the procedure. She was now recognized as one of the leading experts in her field, a far cry from the young girl in Harlem who was told she did not belong. But despite her success, she continued to face the same racism and sexism that had followed her throughout her career. Discrimination was relentless, but so was she. Throughout her years of treating cataract patients, Patricia Bath had grown frustrated with the limitations of existing surgical techniques. The traditional method involved a painful, invasive procedure with a high risk of complications. She knew there had to be a better way. Then, in 1981, inspiration struck. She conceived of the idea for what would become her most famous invention, the Laserphaco Probe, a surgical tool that would use laser technology to vaporize cataracts. The concept was revolutionary. Instead of a large incision and manual extraction, the Laserphaco probe would be inserted through a tiny 1 millimeter opening into the eye. A laser would then vaporize the cloudy cataract, while a second tube would irrigate and clean the eye, allowing for the easy insertion of a new lens. The procedure would be faster, more precise, and nearly painless, a quantum leap forward in ophthalmic surgery. But bringing this vision to life would be an uphill battle. When Bath first conceived of the device in 1981, her idea was more advanced than the technology available at the time. She faced skepticism from colleagues who doubted that laser technology could be safely used in the delicate environment of the human eye. Worse, she encountered the same barriers that had plagued her entire career. Despite university policies that condemned discrimination, she experienced numerous instances of sexism and racism at both UCLA and Drew. She hit a glass ceiling in the United States. Determined not to let these obstacles stop her, Bath took her research abroad to Europe, where her work was accepted on its merits. She served as a visiting professor at the Laser Medical Center of Berlin in West Germany, the Rothschild Eye Institute in Paris, and the Loughborough Institute of Technology in England. In Germany, she tested her design using the most advanced laser technology in the world at the time. It was here that she achieved what she called her personal best in research and laser science. 5 years, Bath dedicated herself to researching and developing the Laserphaco Probe. She worked tirelessly, refining her design, testing her theories, and overcoming countless technical challenges. Finally, on May 17, 1988, her efforts were rewarded. She received U.S. patent number 4,744,360 for an apparatus for ablating and removing cataract lenses. In that moment, Patricia Bath became the first African-American woman physician to receive a patent for a medical purpose. But she did not stop there. Over the course of her career, Bath would hold 5 U.S. patents and 3 international patents in Japan, Canada, and Europe. The United States Patent and Trademark Office noted that her device had helped restore or improve vision to millions of patients worldwide. With it, Bath restored the sight of individuals who had been blind for more than 30 years. In 1986, Bath elected to take a sabbatical from her clinical and administrative responsibilities to focus entirely on her research. She resigned as chair of ophthalmology and pursued her research as a visiting professor at centers of excellence across Europe. It was a bold move, a refusal to be confined by the expectations of others. She had spent her entire life pushing boundaries, and she was not about to stop now. Throughout her remarkable career, Dr. Patricia Bath accumulated honors that reflected the magnitude of her contributions to medicine and humanity. The Smithsonian Institution included her in their Innovative Lives exhibition and program in 1999, recognizing her as one of America's greatest inventors. She was inducted into the International Women in Medicine Hall of Fame in 2001, joining the ranks of the most distinguished female physicians in history. Was a testament to her brilliance and her refusal to let barriers define her. In 2013, she received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Association of Black Women Physicians. For her contributions to ophthalmology, the Alliance for Aging Research gave her the Silver Innovator Award, and Alpha Kappa Alpha honored her with its Presidential Award for Health and Medical Services. But Bath never pursued recognition for its own sake. For her, the greatest reward was always the same: restoring sight to those who had lost it. She once described her personal best moment as a humanitarian mission to North Africa, when she used a keratoprosthesis implant to restore the sight of a woman who had been blind for 30 years. Her words about that moment reveal the depth of her compassion. The ability to restore sight is the ultimate reward, she said. That single sentence captures everything she stood for. Not fame, not fortune, not the patents or the titles, but the simple, profound joy of giving someone their vision back. For Bath, medicine was never about personal glory. It was about service, about using her gifts to heal a broken and unequal world. Her humanitarian work was not an add-on to her career. It was the very heart of it, the reason she had become a doctor in the first place. In 2022, 3 years after her death, Dr. Patricia Bath received one of the highest honors in the world of invention. She was posthumously inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. She and Marion Croak became the first Black women to be inducted in the organization's nearly 50-year history. It was a moment of historic significance, a recognition that had been denied to Black women inventors for far too long. Bath's daughter, Dr. Erica Bath, said the honor was long overdue. Her mother would have been overjoyed. Then came another historic moment. In 2024, Dr. Patricia Bath was posthumously inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. She joined the ranks of Ruby Bridges, Serena Williams, and other pioneering women. This recognition cemented her place among the most influential women in American history. Her daughter, Dr. Erica Bath, attended the ceremony to accept the honor on her mother's behalf. It was a deeply emotional moment, a daughter carrying forward the legacy of a mother who had changed the world. On May 30th, 2019, Dr. Patricia Bath passed away in San Francisco at the age of 76 from complications of cancer. The world lost a brilliant physician, a pioneering inventor, and a passionate humanitarian. Her daughter, Dr. Erica Bath, was by her side. The New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, and countless other publications around the world published obituaries celebrating her extraordinary life. Dr. Bartley Mondino, director of the UCLA Jules Stein Eye Institute, called her an influential trailblazer for women and minorities in the field of ophthalmology. Her daughter, Dr. Erica Bath, is now an associate professor of psychiatry and biobehavioral sciences at UCLA's David Geffen School of Medicine, continuing the family tradition of healing and service. She has spoken movingly about her mother's legacy, describing her as a present and loving mother despite the demands of her groundbreaking career. Erica remembers a woman who wore sneakers and jeans, who was casual and not pretentious, who came from humble roots and never forgot where she came from. Patricia Bath raised her daughter as a single mother while simultaneously changing the field of medicine. Erica has described their relationship as deeply intimate. She has said that it was almost like she and her mother were against the world together. That bond, forged through struggle and triumph, has shaped Erica's own commitment to service. She now carries her mother's torch, ensuring that the next generation knows the story of the woman from Harlem who refused to accept that sight was a privilege for the few. The legacy of Dr. Patricia Bath lives on not just in museums and Hall of Fames, but in the hearts of those she healed and those she inspired. Authored over 100 scientific papers during her career, leaving behind a vast body of knowledge that continues to guide ophthalmologists around the world. She held 5 U.S. patents and 3 international patents, each one representing years of dedication and countless hours of research. Her Laserphaco Probe has been used internationally to treat cataracts, restoring sight to millions of patients worldwide. But perhaps her greatest legacy is the principle she lived by every single day. Eyesight is a basic human right, not a privilege for the wealthy, not a luxury for the few. but a right as fundamental as air and water. That belief drove her to create community ophthalmology, to found the American Institute for the Prevention of Blindness, to invent the Laserphaco Probe, and to fight tirelessly for the underserved communities that the medical establishment had forgotten. She did not just treat patients. She transformed the very way the world thinks about eye care. Dr. Patricia Bath once said, "I didn't set out to be the first. I set out to do my thing and to be of service to humanity." Those words are the key to understanding her extraordinary life. She did not seek fame or recognition. She sought justice, healing, and the simple joy of restoring sight to the blind. Racism, sexism, and poverty, not because she was special, but because she refused to let anything stand in the way of her mission. Her story is a reminder that one person, armed with courage and compassion, can truly change the world. So, the next time you see the sunrise, or read a book, or look into the eyes of someone you love, remember Patricia Bath. Remember the girl from Harlem who dreamed of a world where everyone could see, and the physician who turned that dream into reality. She did it all while facing obstacles that would have stopped most people in their tracks. She did not just break barriers, she obliterated them. And in doing so, she gave the gift of sight to millions. That is her legacy. That is her gift to all of us.